They don't fear your anger. They fear your silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of presence. The kind where you're right there, unshaken, unreadable, fully aware, yet you say nothing. That silence, the one where you don't beg, don't explain, don't justify, you just look once and walk away. That silence is lethal because it doesn't give them answers, it gives them a mirror. And in that mirror, they see everything they did, everything they lost, everything they'll never have again. People think power is loud, but the truth is the loud ones are easy to predict. The dangerous ones are the quiet ones, the ones who burned quietly, bled privately, healed silently, and stood up without applause. That's what you've become. Dangerous. Not because you want revenge, not because you want to hurt them, but because you don't even care to anymore. You've stopped chasing, stopped overgiving, stopped entertaining people who could never match your effort. They thought you'd beg for closure. You didn't. They thought you'd fight to be understood. You didn't. They thought you'd stay no matter what. You didn't. And that's why they panic now, because silence is not weakness, it's mastery. It's the weapon forged in patience, in scars, in betrayal turned to wisdom. You became the walking consequence. A man who doesn't argue, doesn't explain, doesn't flinch. He just disappears when he's done. See, silence doesn't just end conversations. It ends illusions. It ends manipulation. It ends cycles. You didn't announce your change, you became it quietly. And that's why it's terrifying. Because absence screams louder than presence when the person gone was real. Now they feel it everywhere. The coldness in the room when you enter, the emptiness in their chest when you're not there, the silence when their phone doesn't light up with your name. They underestimated you. They thought you'd crumble without their validation. But here you are, building, rising, glowing, not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right. You were always enough. They just weren't enough for you. They mistook your kindness for weakness, your forgiveness for forgetfulness. But you evolved. And the scariest part? You didn't announce it. You just walked away and never looked back. Now they're the quiet ones. They're the ones replaying conversations, checking if you're watching, hoping for a response that will never come. Your silence is a reminder that they had access once. That you gave, you tried, you fought for them, and they wasted it. Now that access is gone, revoked, and that is the real punishment. Because silence isn't empty. It's loaded with truth, with self-respect, with power. And when you finally mastered it, you became untouchable. Not cold, just clear. Not heartless, just healed. And that silence, that unshakable calm, will echo in their minds long after your footsteps are gone. There were days when your chest felt heavy, but you still showed up. That's what most will never understand. You didn't get here by luck. You got here by pain, by sacrifice, by turning suffering into structure. And now your silence isn't empty. It's layered with meaning. With boundaries, with lessons carved into you. That silence unsettles them because it carries weight. It makes them wonder, makes them restless, makes them realize they lost someone who wasn't trying to compete, but to build. They mistook your loyalty for weakness, your consistency for something disposable. They gambled and they lost because you don't play anymore. The board is empty. Their name no longer lights your screen, and your absence says what your voice never had to. Silence isn't just the end of conversation, it's the end of access. The truth is, you didn't burn bridges. You just stopped walking across them. You gave more chances than you should have, more patience than they deserved, and when it was all gone, you left them with nothing but silence. And that silence, that absence, is louder than anything you could have said, because silence doesn't let them twist the story. Silence leaves them sitting with their reflection, their lies, their choices, That's what haunts them. They thought you'd fight, thought you'd beg, thought you'd chase. But you didn't. You simply disappeared. And that's what makes the guilt cut deeper than any words, because now they can't label you bitter, emotional, or dramatic. You gave them nothing, and in that nothing they hear everything. Here's what they really lost. Not a nice guy they could replace, but the rare kind of man who protects, who builds, who stays solid in a world of inconsistency. They didn't lose a person. They lost a future. They lost someone who chose them, who loved them when he could have loved anyone else. And now that chapter is closed. No noise, no goodbye. Just silence. And silence, real silence, is power. It isn't passive. It's a declaration. It says, I don't need to be seen to know my worth. That's what terrifies them. That your peace no longer includes them. That your loyalty wasn't a leash but a gift. That you no longer explain yourself, defend yourself, or wait for apologies that never come. You chose yourself. Because silence changes everything. It doesn't just make you distant. It makes you untouchable. It's not numbness, it's clarity. You stopped bleeding for people who never offered a bandage. You stopped carrying relationships that would have collapsed without your effort. And in that silence, you rebuilt. You became whole. Now your presence feels different. You don't chase, you don't explain, you don't seek validation. Your silence speaks louder than anger ever could, and they'll feel it forever. Not because you destroyed them, but because you walked away and never looked back. That's the justice, that's the power. Silence.